the Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. So, today, Wednesday, July 6th, I think we may need to call it Beta Day because Apple has released a series of Beta 3s for pretty much the full lineup of OSs from iPad OS 16, iOS 16, got a beta 3, Mac OS 13, Ventura got a beta 3, Watch OS 9 got a beta 3, and tvOS even got a beta 3. So let's start off with iPad and iOS 16, the beta that was released today. Apple doesn't typically announce what's in the beta. And that's typically because they want beta testers who are in the Apple Developer Program to be able to go in and to use the software to find bugs, performance kinks, without kind of having a little bit of insight into what is in the beta release. But for the iOS 16 beta 2 release that is about 2 weeks old, there were a couple of highlights that were covered in that beta, which was iCloud backup support for LTE and 5G was added, new menu support and options for managing HomePod. Also, improvements to SMS filtering for messages. And also, there was the addition of resending edited messages to users running the previous iOS version. So those are the changes for the beta 2. We are now on the beta 3 version. I think we're getting closer and closer to the first public beta. So anything I guess you're keeping an eye on, or do you plan on putting this beta on any of your devices?
No. I quit putting beta on devices a long time ago. Simply because one, when I first started doing it, they were super buggy, broke my phone up. So then I stopped doing it for that. And then when the public betas started coming out, I would put them on for the public betas, but I would burn through all of the features. So by the time the new stable actual release of that OS version, it was kind of old because I had been playing with it, talking about it,
The
sharing all the
excitement had kind of worn off, right?
yeah. So now, when everybody's supposed to be excited, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
That's old.
So I stopped doing it.
Mhm.
Now that I'm looking at it, I think um the public beta, I think for iOS, um I thought it was out already. I'm trying to look through the internet real fast, but I guess not. But
Mm-mm.
you already
So
mentioned that.
it looks like the public uh, beta for testers is sometime
Oh,
later
for
this
testers,
month.
gotcha.
And then after that, they're expecting the public release in September. But I think the fact that we are getting these betas so close together, I
Mhm.
think we are at a point where it may be pretty locked in. They may fix and tweak some things. And if they could add some other things to it without breaking it, I think we might be at that point. But the fact that there is a public beta that is coming out later this month, I think Apple may be pretty confident that they are close to their gold build of iOS 16. If we have any of our listeners who still subscribe to putting betas on either primary or secondary device, if there's anything that you've seen that interests you or that kind of caught your eye, definitely hit us up in our Discord to let us know either what you think about this beta 3, or if you've noticed anything that would be a cause for concern. So that's iOS 16 and iPad OS 16. There's also a beta 3 for macOS Ventura. That is the macOS that we are expecting this fall as well. Again, Apple doesn't really release a whole lot of information regarding what is in the build, but Stage Manager is one of the key features that are coming in Ventura, as well as the continuity features, meaning switching from your iPhone camera to using your tablet interchangeably with your iOS, with your actual laptop. So those are probably the biggest things I think that caught. I know when we did our favorites, Stage Manager and the continuity stuff were pretty high on our interest list.
Yeah.
Um,
So for me, the highest thing on the list would be the iCloud Share Photo Library,
mhm,
which looks like it's coming to these latest beta 3 builds. So
yep,
again, I don't have the beta on my devices, but definitely hoping that they get that right because that is a main thing, for my family now that I've got kids with multiple devices, trying to beg and plead to get them to add their files to a
right.
shared album that we can all see is a task. So being able to just one time set up a shared photo library that all of us can upload to, that'll definitely a benefit for me.
Yeah, and it looks like Messages is definitely on the collaboration front with Ventura, as well as Safari and the shared tabs. So it looks like, again, with this beta 3, it looks like we're inching closer and closer to getting the public beta, and inching closer and closer to the final release, which we should be expecting this fall. WatchOS 9 got a beta 3 as well. With the WatchOS 9, it looks like it's WatchOS 9 is no longer supporting the Series 3 watches, so there is going to be a bit of an upgrade to watch faces. So it's going to help because we now have the bigger screens on pretty much a Series 4 and after. The QWERTY keyboard, which was one of the highlights in the announcement, as well, is coming on board. Some new languages are coming on board, but it looks like the biggest update with this beta 3 is going to be in the workout app because a lot of people use their Apple Watch. I think that was one of the biggest selling features when the Apple Watch came out is you can use it to track your workouts. Well, it looks as if the workout app is getting some new features, and specifically for runners, there is going to be a new workout view. And you don't have to necessarily go into the workout app to see this. You can just scroll the digital crown and it gives you a bunch of different metrics while you are actually, say, running. You can get your activity rings, your different heart rates, how you are in power, how you're in battery life, and also elevation, especially if you're running up hills and valleys to try and get your heart rate to do its thing to make you lose as much weight or burn as much fat as you are trying to do. Additionally, sleep app. For those of you who enjoy sleeping in your Apple Watch, it looks like this is going to give you a little bit more data regarding how you sleep. I know there are different apps that you can put on your iPhone that can kind of track that. Now you'll be able to get those extended metrics on your watch if you choose to sleep in your watch. I personally don't like sleeping in my watch, but for those of you who do, this is going to be it for you.
Yeah, I don't sleep in my watch because I forget to charge it in the morning. That's the only reason why. I mean, I don't mind sleeping in it. It makes no difference, but I'll put it on the nightstand so I don't have to worry about charging it up in the morning, which if I need to I've been getting big into smart home stuff,
Mhm.
even more so than I was before, specifically with automations. And this brings up a good idea. Maybe I can figure out some sort of automation that if I did sleep with in my watch, if I wake up or if I do something that triggers something, maybe maybe I can get it to trigger a reminder to say, "Hey, charge your watch while you brush your teeth," or something like I don't know, or put your clothes on or something. Let me think about that. I may come up with may report back next week with with a automation that if my I'm thinking it through out loud on air. If my camera, no, I don't have a camera. Let me think about it. I'll think about it and I'll report back next week. Join us in the Discord. I'll talk
Something
through it there.
cool. All right. And the last of the updates are coming from tvOS. I personally don't use Apple TV, but there is a beta 3 for tvOS as well that was released. And the biggest things that are apparently in tvOS, Nintendo Switch controller compatibility, which means you'll have better compatibility with your Switch using your Apple TV, HDR10 support, video forward featuring Apple TV Plus tab. That's a lot to say that it looks like on the tab of the Apple TV, you'll be able to preview something. Rich video previews at the top of Apple TV Plus tab helps you discover their next favorite original from Apple. Interesting.
N Yeah, so I have an Apple TV
Mhm.
and, we have a Nintendo Switch, that we play as a family. Maybe this will not convince, maybe this will, get me to actually look at some of the current games that
Mm,
are available for Apple TV now that I can connect my Switch controllers. um, Trying to navigate an Apple TV using the Apple TV remote is a chore.
gotcha.
So maybe having that functionality on a traditional, well, not traditional because Nintendo Switch Joy Cons are not traditional, but they have the joystick
They're
look and feel.
easier to control and navigate through.
Right, that are used for gaming that I may just look that up since I already have them. So I
Yeah.
might just check those out. I may just go through some of their games to see what they got on Apple TV.
Cool. And the final thing, Apple Fitness Plus on tvOS, during your workout, you will be able to see your metrics on your screen. I didn't realize you weren't able to do that. I assumed you would, but all right, that's cool.
Well, it's intensity metrics. You can see on Apple Fitness if you're doing it on an Apple TV, they'll show you um they'll
What,
show
like
you
the
your
rings?
rings.
Uh huh.
So the heart rate, a couple other features, but they don't see the intensity metrics, easy, moderate, hard, or all out. They really don't show you that. The person who's leading the workout, the fitness instructor, call those out, but you don't see those visually on the TV.
Oh, so it's more of a
Yeah.
verbal cues as
Right,
to where
right.
you
The
are.
verbal, they'll
Gotcha.
tell you, all right, now it's time to, go all out, or this should be easy, moderate, but you really don't see
Okay.
that visually on the television until
Gotcha.
I guess now.
Cool. All right. And the last of that, HomePod. There are updates. So there's a HomePod software 16 that was added to the public beta testing. So for the HomePod, it seems as if it's an even smaller population of developers. So you have these betas and these developer builds that are only for those people who are in the developer program. But there's a smaller subset of people in the developer program who have access to the HomePod software as well. So it doesn't, again, specifically say what is coming down the pipe for HomePod, but it looks like a smaller population of people will get to see that as well. So that'll be interesting to see if anything comes out of that, because as we talked last week, there seems to be a new resurgence of the HomePod. Remember, had HomePods before, and they kind of phased out and went to the HomePod Minis. Now it looks like we're coming back to the HomePods as well. So for people who use HomePods, it looks like it may be something simpler or new added to the slate.
Well, it'll probably be something new because if you think about it, there is no interface for
Right.
HomePod, right? You either have to use it via the Home app, and if you really don't care about Smart Home or HomeKit, who cares about
Why
using it in
use it?
that?
Yeah.
Or you're just stuck with whatever your phone can do as it relates to pushing
Audio.
music to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, playing music around the house. Well, now that since Apple is starting to see more use cases for HomePod, then maybe they're thinking now it's time to actually come out with a HomePod OS to where you can customize it a little bit more, whether it be per identity, if you have multiple people in the house, if you're interconnecting it with other things, like if you are a HomeKit or a smart home person, the ability to, integrate it into that a little bit more outside of um, just being able to do the intercom thing. Uh, Speaking of which, I recently got a HomePod, the HomePod Mini, and the coolest thing that solves a major problem of mine was when somebody rings my smart camera doorbell, the HomePod acts as a doorbell, as a door chime. The problem I was having with that is I called myself wiring the camera to the doorbell, to the old school door chime
Mhm.
in the house. It don't work. And if it does work, it sounds like a dead pigeon dying, if it worked at all. So now that I've added the HomePod to our house and I integrated it into our HomeKit, now when somebody rings the doorbell, the HomePod chimes, which just solves a huge problem I was having. So all that to say, all around the world to say, as people come up with more use cases for HomePod, then Apple should probably figure out how to create a OS of its own.
And it makes sense, especially when we talked last week that the iPad, iPad OS 16 is no longer going to be able to serve as a HomeKit hub.
Hmm.
That leads more credence to, there being a separate interface and way to manage any of your HomeKit automations.
Hmm.
All right, that wraps it up for beta day. Let's head on over to a couple of other key things we should know from Apple. During the WWDC keynote, it was announced that the new M2 MacBook Airs would be coming out in July. It appears as if we have a date. Pre orders will start on July 8th, which is this
Today,
Friday.
if you're listening to us on Friday.
Yeah, you can pre-order them right now if you are listening to the recorded show. And the overall release date, meaning the date that they ship, meaning the date they'll be available in stores, will be July 15th. The pre-orders will be starting at 5 a.m. Pacific. So that's 5 a.m. Pacific, meaning it would be 8 a.m. Eastern, which is a bit of a more reasonable hour for those of us specifically on the East Coast. So, if you were in the market, if the M2 MacBook Air was your jam, your time has come and it is time for you to go and get your device.
So I may be interested, may not be in the market directly, but I may be interested indirectly, for my daughter, my 12-year-old. She is like super heavy into YouTube. She
Hmm.
bugged us for like consistently. This is probably the most consistency I've seen out of her. Bugged us consistently for a year to get her a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Finally, we go ahead. I mean, not recently, but um, I'd say earlier this year, we let her get a YouTube channel. And now she is like recently starting to actually create content. So much so that I have a new mic. For the longest, I used the Blue Yeti mic. Since I bought a new mic, I gave her my Yeti mic, and I had a one of those basic Logitech cameras that I was using for video for the podcast. Upgraded my camera, which I'm probably going to end up doing again shortly. But when I do all that, I give all that stuff to her. Well, and we also downloaded Final Cut Pro. So, and also paid for a Udemy class, not sponsored, and Udemy holla at us. But I found
We'll
a
take
Final
it.
Cut. Yeah, I found a Final Cut Pro course on Udemy for her to watch it, for her to watch. All that to say, her little 2012 128 gigs of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM MacBook Air is screaming. Anytime she does anything, that thing is loud. So I had to give her the Yeti mic to do a better job of masking the sound
The
from the
fan.
fans
Yeah.
from her MacBook so she could get better audio when she's making YouTube videos. So all the way around the world to say I may be interested, and I believe in laptops. I really don't believe in desktops because they're more what's the word? Versatile. They're
Mm.
more versatile because it's your device. So if you need to take it somewhere, you can take it somewhere. But if you want to create a desktop system, there's ports, there's docks, there's monitors, there's all these things that you can use to actually dock your laptop and give that desktop experience. So I really don't buy desktops. So I may be interested in a newer Apple laptop to do the whole hand me down thing. So if I were to get an M2 MacBook Air or MacBook Pro whenever they come out, it would probably go to my wife. My wife has a 2019 MacBook Air with the touch bar that would go to my 14-year-old, and my 14-year-old has a 2014 MacBook Air, the clamshell MacBook Air, that would go to my 12-year-old.
Mhm.
So anything's better than
The
what she's got
process of
right now.
hand down, right.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely we are a hand-me-down family. But if you're getting the hand-me-down, my opinion is that's better than what you got now, Jack. So you better take
Exactly.
it and like it.
Be happy.
Unless she gets really, really good at this, because she's getting good. I ain't gonna front. I watched one of her YouTube videos today, and basically what she does is she is a Roblox player. So all she does is to run around Roblox all day. So she's got Final Cut Pro now. She's learning video editing. I gave her the ins and outs very begrudgingly. She listened about here's what you say when you start your video. You got to tell people what it's about. You got to tell people who you are, what the video is about, and what the takeaway from the video is in the first couple seconds, or people are not going to watch. And
Mhm.
you got to kind of narrate what you're doing. You can't just be on there playing and people just watching. You got to kind of narrate what you're doing. All right, I'm going to do this. All right, we're going over this area, yada yada yada. So she soaks a little bit of it in. So she soaked that in, and she's actually using that um, and applying it to the video. So she's actually getting pretty good. So the caveat or the exception to her getting an super old 2014 MacBook Air to her, she gets real good, she may just get a newer device and not have to deal with the hand me down. So we shall see. So I may be in the market for an M2 MacBook so my daughter can get her YouTube on.
Nice. All right, go ahead, number middle child, get that YouTube money, get you some sponsorships, some ads. All right, the final thing on the lowdown docket is a new feature that was just announced called lockdown mode. If you remember last fall, we talked about the Pegasus spyware that was basically infiltrating countries, PCs, Macs, I mean, pretty much everything. And they were getting a lot of sensitive data, not only from just, quote unquote regular people, but it was being used against folks who were journalists in countries where they necessarily don't have the free press. But all to say, it was pretty significant. It had a lot of the girls scared, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So out of all of that madness, Apple has come up with lockdown mode. And it's not just for iPhones, it's for iPads and Mac computers as well. And it is specifically designed to fight against any type of hacking, uh, campaign schemes, things for targeted individuals. This mode is specifically geared towards that. Now, while the Pegasus attack didn't affect a large number of people, the people that it did affect were significant. And again, it's better to have too much in your arsenal than not enough. So it's better for people to have access to this rather than not, in the event that they are one of the select few who gets targeted or gets caught up in this type of melee. So the this lockdown mode, it will be free. It is expected to come later this year. But it's one of these things where it allows basically extra protection for users on your phone.
Right.
You know,
I was gonna say I was gonna read what it does.
okay, go
So
for it.
on this story, it says lockdown mode is an extreme optional protection that should only be used if you believe you may be personally targeted by a highly sophisticated cyber attack. So that's not your baby
For
mama
today. Yeah.
following you. That's not you think your job is reading your emails. It's not that you think your parents are overly controlling and they watching all your Instagram and your YouTube and your TikToks. Is none of that. Is for people who are might be targeted in highly sophisticated cyber attack. Most people, Apple mentions actually in the lockdown mode, most people are never targeted by attacks of this nature. But if you are, when the iPhone is in lockdown mode, it will not function as it typically does. Apps, websites, and features will be strictly limited for security, and some experiences will be completely unavailable. So that's basically, for lack of a better words, scorched earth for your
Yes.
phone. You may be able to make a phone call. You may be able to send a text message. But that's about it.
Yeah. And they don't call it lockdown mode for nothing. And again, like I said at the top, this is for those folks who are in oppressive regimes, whether you be a journalist, whether you be an activist, those type of systematic, invasive um, procedures that are trying to specifically target you for what type of information you're trying to disseminate or what you're trying to do on the ground as it relates to human rights, as it relates to free press. This is what this lockdown mode is for, and it's not for everyone, but everyone will have access to it and it will be free. One of the things that the article does talk about as well is that you won't, specifically for your phone, it's going to block attachments. You'll be able to preview links. Um, any websites that could possibly be hackable is going to prevent that. Incoming FaceTime calls from people you don't know. Now, if you have a FaceTime call coming in and you know that you are not being targeted, this isn't for you. You can just decline it or ignore it if it's something unknown. But for people in these types of situations, this can be dire. The other thing is that I thought was very interesting and brought up unique point is you can't, it says Apple devices will also not accept accessory connections unless the device is unlocked. So, meaning you can't remotely install anything. You won't be remotely be able to be accessed unless your phone is actually unlocked.
Right, because there are some software boxes, I call them, call it a gray box, if you will, to where police officers, for example, could take your phone, plug it up to this box, and extract information.
Right.
Well, with this lockdown mode, they won't even be able to do that
Mm-mm.
because the phone has to be unlocked. So it has to be in your presence. And basically, for lack of a better term, you have to give consent. So if you are, detained for whatever reason, and you don't give consent and they take your phone anyway, this lockdown mode will prevent anything from connected to it. You can't stick no lightning port to it. You can't charge it up. You can't do anything by connecting it to anything, iTunes, anything. It locks all
Right.
that down.
It won't recognize the input. So it's one of those things where Apple is trying to pull this in and to head off any type of unwanted access if you are being targeted, or if you find yourself in a dangerous situation where um, your device might be able to be compromised. So this new feature will be ready for testing this summer, and then it will be fully released and free publicly to everyone in the fall. This is a part of a larger measure that Apple is doing in conjunction with this lockdown mode. They announced also that they have a $10 million grant to the Dignity Fund, which is established by the Ford Foundation, which helps to support human rights and financial social repression. So it seems like this is something that is all encompassing when it comes to protecting human rights and protecting your devices if you find yourself in a situation that is dangerous for you. So, yeah, so be on the lookout for that. And again, remember, this isn't just something to take lightly if you enable this lockdown mode. This is something pretty serious. And before you enter into that mode, you need to make sure that this is something that is absolutely necessary. That is going to wrap up the lowdown for this week, where we talked about all Apple related things.